Hello, this is David McNabb, your host of the Creation Corner. Thanks for tuning in to this show. We have another exciting guest to bring you today, but before we do, if you've seen this show before, you know what's coming up. It's a little humor, little creation humor. 4 out of 3 people struggle with math. 4 out of 3. I thought growing up would take longer. My wife says, I only have 2 faults. I don't listen and something else. My body is a temple, ancient and crumbling. Well, there you have it. That's that's what passes off for humor in the Creation Corner, I'm afraid.
That's it.
And the resource that I'm going to recommend to you today is from Answers in Genesis, and this is the New Answers book, number 1. Now, there's also number 2 and number 3. And we're showing it on the screen right now. You can go to that website and get it there, or you can get it from me. And my phone number will be on the screen as well. And just give me a call anytime, and we'll hook up, and you can pick up that resource, and I have hundreds of others as well. My guest today is Hank Giesecke, and Hank has been a speaker for a good long time. Now, I know he looks young, but he's been out there for many a year speaking on creation science, worldview, and politics, and how we're going to prepare, how we're going to get ready for what's ahead of us. And so I want to introduce to you Hank Giesecke.
Good. Thank you, Dave. Good to be here.
Hank, thanks for being my guest today. And give us your background, would you?
Yeah, basically, kind of quickly, I have a bachelor's and master's in aerospace engineering, an MBA, and I'm an ordained pastor. We had the blessing of working on the early Atlas program. The Vietnam War was going on, and the Russians put up a satellite, and everybody panicked. So we needed to get something in the air. We then worked on the space program, did a lot of work there, worked on projects in Vietnam and all that sort of thing. So did that, was in consulting for many years. We do mission work at Bible camps in Africa and all that kind of stuff. So, we try to keep busy.
Tell us about some of your mission works that you've done.
We primarily work in Malawi and Burundi in Africa. Malawi they're both in southern Africa on the eastern side. Malawi is just been, one of the poorest countries going for a long time. So we try to do agricultural stuff.
No, I think I heard that Malawi was the poorest country in Africa. Is that right?
Yeah, some people argue that it is the poorest, and it is poor. There's no question. And but they're wonderful people, and for the most part, it's Christian. They just love the Lord, and we try to help with agricultural projects and things like that. Burundi, on the other hand, is north of there a little bit. Burundi had a long civil war, Tutsis versus Hutus, and it was just sad. They lost probably 250,000 people in 13 years.
Wow.
And so I've taught at the university there and so forth. Again, wonderful people, very eager. I mean, it's fun to be at the university. I mean, these kids just can't wait to learn all kinds of stuff. And I always tell them I don't know very much, but they want to know everything. I mean, you never get any sleep. But what's interesting is that the president of Burundi, who was educated in the United States and is a strong Christian, gets on radio for the most part. There's no TVs to speak of, and points out to them that one of the reasons America was so successful is people came to America from different tribes. And he uses that term specifically because the problem in that part of Africa has always been Tutsis versus Hutus, the 2 different tribes. I can't always tell one. They can tell just like that. And as you know, the problem in Rwanda was Tutsis and Hutus. And so what he's saying to them is that, people came to America from different tribes, but they all worked together. They were American first.
Yes.
And after a generation, the fact that you may be from Ireland or Scotland or wherever your people are from doesn't make any difference. It's interesting, but who cares? And so he's really starting to make a difference in that. And what we're trying to do is to say, if we can get stability there, and the Civil War is basically over, then now you can start attracting businesses to come in and so forth. So, so there's really some hope there.
Good. Since we're on this topic of Burundis and Hutus and the what was the other tribe?
Tutsis and Hutus.
Tutsis. What was the cause of the conflict? Or was it just because they were side by side and they're both big tribes?
Well, I mean, yeah, we could spend a long time on this. After the war, unfortunately, the Europeans drew the lines, and they paid no attention. They had no knowledge of how the tribes were set up in Africa, and so they would, draw a line right through some area where it was one tribe, and now it's going to be two. It was just a mess, and it was just again ignorance of what was there already when the Europeans drew the maps after the wars.
Okay.
So World War I,
Okay.
World War II. So
Yeah, because you and I have Scottish Irish heritage,
Right.
and in Scotland, all these clans, they just fought each other because they were next to another clan.
Yeah.
And hey, maybe you stole the sheep or something, or you're settling on my edge of my territory.
Yeah.
That's all it took, and then there's the clan war right there.
That's right. That's right.
But
So-
well,
so
and you were supplying wells and that kind of
Well,
thing.
we did wells, but also like portable irrigation and stuff, because when it rains in that part of Africa, it rains. When it doesn't rain, it doesn't rain. So things like portable irrigation systems we've put in and all that stuff, so they can grow something beyond what you call kitchen gardens. And
Increase the crop yield, and so that they'll have storage for the
Yeah.
times when they don't have not
yeah,
growing.
when they don't have the rain. So anyway, interesting, neat, wonderful people. So.
And most of them were Christians, you say.
Yes, the majority there are Christians. It's
did you-
about 8% Muslims, and amazingly, again, because they're so small a percentage, I think, is they're not worried about hearing the gospel, and so they're very open to the gospel, and so that's encouraging. That's exciting. I wish we would see more of that here, and in fact, I think that's one of the things I'm going to kind of push on today is the issue of order. We see order all through creation and action, and for way too long here in this country, we have not seen action in terms of our Judeo-Christian foundation. We've let it languish. And prophets have been telling us this for decades. I mean, Francis Schaeffer, Solzhenitsyn, Wilkinson, Jeffress, on and on, kept saying, hey, you need to not be silent, pulpit. You're supposed to stand up. And of course, we've had the problem. We had the Johnson Amendment, which was no real reason anyway, but for lots of different reasons, we have walked away from this, and it relates to creation because it comes out of the Bible. We're exactly where God tells us we will be if we walk away from Him.
Yes.
Exactly. And I like to read one, and if you allow me, I'll just, it's very short. I'm in Jeremiah 6, 16 through 19. Thus says the Lord, stand in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths, where the good way is, and walk in it. Then you will find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk in it. Also I set watchmen over you, saying, listen to the sound of the trumpet. But they said, we will not listen. Therefore hear you, O nations, and know, O congregation, what is among them. Hear, O earth, behold, I will certainly bring calamity on this people, the fruit of their thoughts, because they have not heeded my words, nor my law, but rejected it. And that's exactly where America is today.
Yes.
And so what I'm hoping is that as we discuss this today, we'll realize that on one hand, we, would like to go and hit pastors on the head with a 2x4. And of course, some pastors have been really preaching to wake them up. I mean, Franklin Graham has been saying the pulpit's got to wake up and speak up. But I think it's up to us as the church to now go up to our pastors, put our arms around them, and say, we love you, we want to be equipped. You are to equip this out of this book. Jesus says he has all authority.
Yes.
Okay? All authority. What does all mean? All. And so, and of course the usual pitch is that, well, I can't be involved in politics. Really, it seems to me when I read here, Joseph, Daniel, I mean, you name everybody, they were all involved in politics. Politics is the operation of government. And the issues are not political, they're biblical. I just take abortion, transgenderism, homosexuality, drugs, I mean, financial problems. It's all biblical.
Yes.
And so we need to get back to that. We need to come alongside our pastors and tell them we want them to equip us. And they're to speak the truth in love.
Yes.
And they're more concerned, they're more fearful of offending someone than they are of offending God.
Yes, and that's the
Okay.
big problem, isn't it? Well, tell me, what do you say is the most important areas that we should be equipped in?
Well, I think that to get back to the creation thing for a second, I think it's a good foundational talking point, if you want to, important talking point for people to understand that Scripture is true, that what we read here is truth. I think we get tangled up sometimes in the sense that we go on and on and on about trying to look at specific pieces of the creation itself and prove that. My question is this: when you were 7 years old, how long did it take you to figure out that gravity was real? Because you kept falling off your bicycle. It only took you about twice to say, okay, I don't need any more evidence, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay? And so we have tons of evidence to show that this book is true, that what it says is true. And when I speak of order, I mean, well over 60 times in this book talks about order. We live in an orderly world.
Yes.
And so, I mean, when you look at design, I mean, we could speak for hours on design. That didn't happen by accident.
No.
So this whole evolutionary idea that we evolved from pond scum makes no sense whatsoever.
That's right.
I mean, every time scientists look at stuff nowadays, they are flabbergasted at how detailed and designed something is and how it works with other pieces. That didn't happen by accident.
No.
You know, it's just like the old, and we use it all the time. I have a wristwatch on here. If you find that out in the woods, you didn't assume it did itself. And so what I'm saying is we've got tons of evidence to know that this book is true. Therefore, we need to be saying, look, let me show you the truth.
Yeah.
Because the order that we're missing is the order to our lives. And the other side, Satan's side, which has, of course, been going on for a long time, you know, the Marx and Engels and the Darwins and all this stuff started in the mid-1800s. So they've been working, and what did Marx say? We're going to march through the institutions, education, church, et cetera, et cetera. Look at the antipathy against the church nowadays, okay? We're bigots and all this stuff. No. They've been very clever at flipping the language on us. For example, if you and I are against transgenderism, then we're haters. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. Let's look at reality. It's not a healthy lifestyle.
No.
So if I'm trying to get them out of an unhealthy lifestyle, how am I the hater? And so we've got to go back and be bold. We're told in Ephesians to be bold, to go and say, this is God's truth, and we're at a mess right now. I just read Jeremiah 6. We need to do something. And I hope that frankly, you know, I think sometimes people don't think God is real. In fact, it's very disturbing that Barna found out that 50% of the seminary-trained pastors in this country aren't biblical focused.
Right. They don't have a biblical worldview.
No. I mean, some of the things that they answered no to is, do you believe absolute moral truth exists?
That's right. I've seen that one. It's
Yeah,
horrible.
that the Bible is accurate, that Jesus was sinless, on and on kind of thing. And we've lost common sense, and we see that all the time around here. For example, if I speak to a college group nowadays, I'll say to them, I understand you make up your own truth. Oh, and I have hands go up. I make up my own truth. And I always try to be nice. I try to say, okay, my background's
You mean you don't blast them right at the beginning?
my background's engineering, so you make up your own truth. That sounds good. So what I'd like you to do is come up here and stick your finger in this light socket. And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I said, if you don't believe that, we're going up on the roof. You can have, you know, the greatest little Superman cape that you can buy, but when you jump off the roof, you're going to hit the ground.
Right.
And you don't get to change that. I mean, you know, it's the way it is. And so we need to be out there. We're called to be God's ambassadors. We're to go forth and say, I don't have all the answers, and I never will. But we know enough in here, just like when we were 7, we learned about gravity. We have enough in here to know that this is true, and this is the way of life. These other lifestyles are death. I mean, what bothers me particularly is the situations where this pushing now where you can't get treatment for a kid who thinks he's transgender. That kid's going to commit suicide when he's 15
Yes.
because he won't know
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yes, we see the depression rates, the suicide rate, the infection rate so high
Sure.
among transgenders and homosexuals.
Absolutely.
And then when we try to help them come out of that you're right. They say, "Hey, you hate us."
Yeah.
No, we don't hate you.
No.
We want the best for you.
Well, and the church is to reach out and love people, love
Yes,
God and love
yes,
people.
that's right.
And by ignoring them, we're not loving them.
Yes. Exactly.
We need to reach out, and yes, you're going to be in a fight sometimes. But if I recall correctly, Jesus offended several people.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we need to be doing that, and part of the way we can do that is to use the evidence we have, if you will, of creation that's in God's work, that's in
Yes.
His book.
Yes.
And the creation evolution talk a lot of times will, as I say, go on physical kind of stuff, but there's so much else that we could spend hours on. Look at the issue of music. Why, if we evolved from pond scum, would there be any interest in music? It doesn't feed you. Why? Why do different species help each other that isn't family? Because if we evolved from pond scum and it's survival of the fittest, why would I help anyone that wasn't my family?
That's right.
And yet they do. I mean, even parrots help other parrots, and elephants, and so forth and so on. So, we, as I say, have tons of evidence out here that we need to reach out and love people and bring them into the kingdom. Because, frankly, my concern is, have we gone too far? Because we serve a God of love, but we also serve a God of justice. And, have we gotten to the point where it's too late? And I pray not. But let me read something that probably will chill you. I'm in 2 Chronicles 36:16. But they mocked the messengers of God, despised His words, and scoffed at His prophets. Okay? All through the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, we had prophets. Solzhenitsyn, Francis Schaeffer, they kept saying the church is accommodating the culture, on and on and on kind of stuff.
Yes.
Okay, it's exactly what they're talking about here. Despised His words and scoffed at the prophets until the wrath of the Lord arose against His people till there was no remedy. And I'm thinking, wow. I mean, that better be kind of chilling thought for us, that if nothing else, I mean, what does it take to wake us up as the church?
Yeah.
And as a people? I mean, America was founded on the idea of God's Word. Go read the Mayflower Compact. And in just a few days, we're going to be celebrating the 400th anniversary of them stepping off the boat at Plymouth.
That's right.
Okay? 1600, 400 years exactly, December 22nd. And so, and if you read the Mayflower Compact, it says to bring this word to the new land. And they very much saw it as the parallel to the Israelites going into the Promised Land. And we've been that way. We've been a shining city on a hill for people all over the world. I mean, when we're in Africa and Europe, and there are people who would literally give their right arm to get to America. And yet we've not maintained it. We've not done that.
No.
And there's so many issues here. I mean, we've hired, for example, career politicians. The founders never envisioned a career politician.
That's right.
They envisioned real life people who have real life experience. And so, there's so many things. Look at the debt. We need to handle this debt issue. The founders were very clear about that, and the Bible speaks a lot about debt, is that this enormous debt is on whose shoulders? Our kids and grandkids.
Yes.
And great-grandkids. So, there's so many issues. They're not political issues, they're biblical issues. And so we need to get out there and get people involved in this and give them the truth. And if we do it through talking about stuff that they can relate to in terms of creation, stuff around them that they see, the order that they see, everybody's looking for order.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I mean, this boggles my mind. Let me just share with you 3 different groups that are looking for order, and it's really sad. There's the Hoylites that follow Fred Hoyle. Here's their argument. There must be no proof, of course, there must be an eternal, uncreated energy or life force that is seeded continually on the earth by comets. Now, the more you think about that, you more think, how sad that they're so desperate for order and something that they would think of this. I mean, uncreated energy? I mean, how in the world do you get that?
That doesn't make sense.
No. Here's another group. Humans are building a god in the form of artificial intelligence. Okay.
Okay.
Now, artificial intelligence is growing by leaps and bounds, but it's basically computer, technically oriented. In fact, they have a new church called the Way of the Future. And I'm thinking,
Oh.
I mean, but think how sad this is. I mean, we laugh, and you're right. Then we'll give you one more, simulation theory. We are all living in a matrix-style simulation. That somehow we're just living in a play or something, or and you think how sad that is that these people don't know the truth, and they're searching for that order. They're searching for something that they can hang on to for their life. And they have no sense of what God tells us is that, through Him we have eternal life. I mean, hallelujah. And this idea that evolution pushes out all the time, that we're in charge, that we've evolved to the top and we're in charge, is just nuts.
Yes.
I love to do, particularly with college kids, I said, basically you're deaf and blind. And they'll look at me again and think I'm crazy. I said, let me give you an example. If you make the total radiation spectrum this big, you and I see about that much of it. The sound spectrum this big, we hear that much. We're deaf and blind. So the idea of an angel standing right here is a piece of cake. You and I can't detect them.
Yeah.
And yet we think we're in charge. We're not in charge. What does Romans 1 say? Everybody knows in their heart that God exists. I mean, I think we're born that way. We're born knowing what's right and wrong. And the example I use there is that if you're in a World Trade Center building and it starts to collapse, no one yells, "Oh, my pet rock." What do they yell? "Oh, my God."
Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
Help me.
Sure, because they know Romans 1 tells us in his heart. So we're made in his image, and that's to be celebrated. And yet, and the church has got to start to speak out, because lives are being lost because we're not speaking. So we, the church, need to go forth and, as I say, wrap our arms around our pastors and elders and say, we want to be equipped. You've got to equip us, because there are people out there who are dying, who are... I mean, we could spend an hour on abortion.
Yes.
We've killed 61 million people. We make Hitler look like a piker.
Oh.
And
Hank, are you speaking to churches recently, or I know you've done that in the past? Are you doing that now?
It's off and on. It goes and comes sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
and are you speaking to college audience? Because you would be good for college students.
oh yeah, no, the college kids are the really ones to touch.
Yeah.
Because, as I say all the time, I worry a little bit about the college kids, because I realize they're at the age where they will soon reproduce and vote. And so, well, and I think they're the ones that, I want them to be, I don't want them to sit in their parents' basement until they're 26. I want them to get out and be part of the world. I mean, the Lord's made that for us. There's lots to do. I mean, I tell...
Are you having a hard time getting on the campuses, though? Because I know they usually don't really want Christians to come on and talk.
No. And that's where, again, we need to get our culture back. And the way we get our culture back is from the pulpit.
Yes.
The pulpit's got to start saying... When I was a kid, people would say, well, they could do that, but it's not right. People had a sense of right and wrong.
Yeah.
Now they don't, and we need to get that back.
Yes, a collective right and wrong for the society.
Sure.
Which we don't see a lot of these days.
No, I mean, look at people who are more than happy to cheat on their taxes or cheat on voting or cheat on anything. And there's just not that sense of right and wrong anymore. We've got to get that back. And then that'll open up, I think, the colleges more, because people say, oh, yeah, we need to do that. I mean, what kind of a culture is this? I mean, it's disastrous.
That's right. All right, Hank, we don't have much time left in the show, so I want to just get a few important things that you want people to know about creation science evidences. You mentioned order, Now, we can plainly see design and order
Yeah.
in the world and in every living thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that is a powerful piece of evidence that indicates there is a God
Yes.
who ordered things and designed things.
Yes.
What else can you tell us?
One of the things that I look at is, for example, I'll call it technology. For example, early on, these people weren't apes, growing up, dumb apes running around dragging their knuckles. For example, let me give you, this blows my mind because I probably couldn't even do this. Astronomy. They obviously looked at the heavens and they realized there were seasons and so forth, to the point where in BC times they understood the issue of drift. And what do I mean by drift? Where the Earth, because it wobbles a little bit, there is 1 degree change in the timing every 72 years. And they understood that. Now that isn't from some ape.
No.
Okay.
No.
Look at architecture. They really knew how to build things that stood up. Because if you want to read a great book, go read when they first started building the cathedrals in the Middle Ages. In Europe, they didn't understand the issue of how you construct an arch that supports everything. And they would put the roof on it and the walls would fall out. And if you go to Europe, as you know, you find what they call flying buttresses, great big triangles of stone that held the walls up. Right. But some of the prehistoric people knew that. I mean, they built pyramids and they have tunnels in them. So architecture, science, but take music, for example, the bagpipes. A lot of different things came from early pipes that these people learned. And when you think about music, it isn't just kind of making a noise. I mean, you've got to kind of understand how music works and fits the ear. So so just the issue of technology blows your mind as to the fact that these people were smart. They weren't dumb people.
Yes.
They had a lot of intelligence that God gave them.
Oh, yes. And there's an excellent book, perhaps you've read this one, The Puzzle of Ancient Man. It goes through many things about how incredibly smart ancient man was.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about a million years. I'm talking about in the last, it's like 4,000 or 5,000 years ago.
Sure.
That we can see what they have done.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't even know how to do it.
No. Oh, no. I think I believe we've lost some of the stuff that they knew, because don't forget, early on they lived long lives before the flood.
That's right.
And so
Pre-flood
they
time.
had all this time to gain experience and try stuff and so forth. And I think we lost a lot, of course, at the flood.
Yes, absolutely.
And we could talk for hours on the flood too. I mean, there's no question about the flood. I mean, all the cultures have the flood story. And how did that happen?
That's right.
Because 8 people got off the ark and told the story.
Yes.
I'm pretty simple.
That's a very good piece of evidence in support of the flood, because, like you say, every ancient culture has a flood tradition.
Yes. Well, and I'll finish with one of your jokes that you'll like this. Since you're an expert on this book called the Bible, what kind of lights did they have on the ark?
Floodlights.
Floodlights. There you go.
Come on, man.
Okay.
Everybody, you got to have floodlights.
Okay, but then why didn't they play cards on the ark? Because Noah was sitting on the deck.
Oh, I should have known that one. I will. Hey, appreciate that.
You can add that to your great list.
You kind of had to show me up here with the joke area. I could tell. Well, Hank, now, do you have any engagements coming up? Do you have any big projects you're working on right now?
No, I think what we're looking at now is just trying to see what we do with this culture. I mean, we're in a really very tricky spot, as we know, and in the next 2 months it's going to be very critical as to what's going to happen. And I know you don't want to get political on it, but the reality is that if we end up with that Equality Act, which could be put in place, the church is basically done. And so we're at a very critical point where we have to, we just can't talk theory, we got to talk reality.
Yes. And you're also one of the speakers for Oath Keepers.
Yes. Yeah.
Will you be speaking anytime soon there?
I don't know. What we're trying to do is to see. I mean, the COVID thing has really got people flustered, I think. A lot of people have, as you know, canceled all kinds of stuff and so forth. So everything's in flux right now, I think. People are saying, well, can we get more than 6 people together? And, so I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything you want to leave us with as we close out the show?
No, I think we just want to lift our nation up in prayer, lift the people that don't know Christ, and that the church would be energized, that we would see a revival in this nation. The Lord has done that before.
Yes.
We know the Welsh revival, Evan Roberts came out of there and so forth. Sure. We just need another revival, because if America doesn't hang in there and survive, then the whole world suffers. I mean, we have been that shining light for the whole world.
That's exactly right. And folks, if you're a Christian, pray for revival.
Yes.
That's the best thing you can do. If you'd like a church contact myself or Hank Giesecke, and we'll be glad to, we know the churches in this area, we'll be glad to recommend one for you. And Brother Hank, thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Always good to see you.
All right. Come on back next week for another edition of the Creation Corner with your host, David McNabb. God bless. Bye-bye.